All right, guys, we are ready to start off the night with our first guest of the evening. We're going to bring on Flora, breast cancer survivor. How are you doing, Flora?
I am great. It's actually Chinese or Lunar New Year today,
Oh,
so
cool. Happy New
glad to be able
Year.
to celebrate you got
That's
with
so
you guys.
cool. That's awesome. That's cool. Thanks for doing this on a special day like that. That's awesome.
Yeah,
I,
no
uh,
problem.
I,
Glad to
I
be
was
here.
I was complimenting your shirt earlier too. I love that. Fear not. That is fantastic.
Yeah.
Yes, we all need that shirt. All right, so I know that we were introduced through Jennifer Tatum, who is on our board of directors, and I'm so excited to get to meet with you and chat with you. And as we talked earlier today, every survivor story is unique, and yours is especially unique. But we haven't ever spoken about the details. I'm excited to learn. When you first were diagnosed with breast cancer, were you going in for screenings at that time?
No, I wasn't. So this was 2009, January, and I had just turned 36. I'm 52 now, so this is 16 years ago.
That's young
Um,
too.
and
Wow.
I was doing a breast exam, my own self breast exam in the shower. And so I just felt something that was different. And I actually asked my husband, I said, can you feel this for me professionally? I'm a nurse, pediatric nurse, and my husband's actually a family doc. And so I said, be professional, pretend I'm one of your patients. And so he did say, I do feel something. I think you need to go get a mammogram. And being 36, it wasn't um, really something that was on my
Yeah,
radar
right, like, you
to
weren't
get
concerned
it done.
about something like that. Did you have any other breast cancer in your family that you're aware of?
No,
Yeah.
none at all. No breast cancer
Wow. Yeah, so
whatsoever.
so there was no reason to think you'd be at risk at all.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. So I went in for a diagnostic mammogram. Got a babysitter because I had a 3-year-old and a 6-year-old at that time, and it was MLK Day that year. And so went in for the mammogram, and then the radiologist just pretty much said, "Hey, can you wait? We need to have you come back. We'll work you in since you have the babysitter to do a biopsy." So I had a biopsy done a couple hours later
Oh, wow,
that
that
day.
couple hour that's amazing that they got you in so quickly like that.
Yeah. So thankful that they did. But of course, it was just a big blur because was not expecting that.
Yeah, no doubt. That's so scary. And so you're 36 and I mean, the other thing is like most of the time the stories that I hear when something is found, they're like, well, we're going to keep an eye on it, come back in 3 months or whatever. They're
Mhm.
never like, oh, we need a biopsy right away. Do you know what it was about it that made them feel like they needed it biopsied right away? Was it large or anything?
It was not. It was considered, grade at that time, but stage two. What they, you know, eh, I can't even remember what size it was. I just know like when they did the biopsy, the pathology, they gave you the T1C N0 M0. That was like much more specific what they go by. So it was considered like stage two, um, from what I remembered. But just the fact that I felt it and that they said that usually people, when it's that small, that early on, can't feel it. But they said that it was, I guess, I mean, it was truly, from what they could tell, it looked like it was infiltrating.
Wow.
Um, uh, so, so yeah,
So
and
scary.
again, it wasn't just I was surprised that they were able to work me in, and I was thankful to get
Right.
it over with, like, there was no waiting time.
Right. And how soon
Yeah.
after the biopsy did you get the results?
Probably, like, 2 days later, because you're always waiting on the ER, PR, um, the markers, right, to help, um, define what kinda cancer it
Right.
is.
Yeah. So
So,
so when they were you at home when they called or
actually, my husband told me the news.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
So because it was within his hospital system,
Got you.
so I think they asked whether or not they wanted to call me or have him tell me, and so he chose to tell me. And then, it was after work 2 days later, and we just cried. Uh, so it was not expected. Again, I was 36, right? And we had just actually talked about, hey, are we gonna have a third kid? But
Wow. That like pulls the
uh,
brakes on life, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. But it was just um, I think, and part of me was like, when I got the news, was like, oh gosh, thank goodness it's me. It's not my husband. It's not my kids. So it just,
That's a profound statement. I mean, like it'd be harder for you to handle it if it were somebody you love as opposed to
yeah,
yourself. You're like, I got this, but if I had to
right.
worry about somebody else, yeah. So, how did you? Well, first of all, we got to point out self exams so
Hmm.
important, right? I mean, you've just proved it. I mean, we talk about it all the time. It's so important. If you're not familiar with how to do a self exam, there's very reputable websites out there where you can get information on how to do a self exam. It's so important to know your body. But once you got that diagnosis, what was the first step? Did they already have kind of a plan based on what your cancer looked like as far as it being? I think you said it was ER positive and PR positive, right?
Yes.
And
So it was ER positive, PR positive, and HER2 negative. So it was the best type of breast cancer at
if
that
you're
time,
if you're selling it, yeah,
right.
right,
So, yeah, so then I met with my primary doctor and we kind of just went through a plan. So she basically said, okay, we need to get you in with a breast surgeon and go from there. And so then it was getting a PET scan and making sure I got whatever films that needed to be done because, I didn't want to have to repeat any tests that I didn't need to.
right.
Right. And always, like I tell people, when you go to an appointment, ask them, what do I need at this appointment? Do I need a CT scan? Do I need an MRI? And do you have it? Um, do I need certain labs? So you can have a good visit and a thorough visit with the specialist that you're seeing.
Yeah, I mean, being that you have a medical background and your husband has a medical background, I bet that was really helpful for you to do those types of things. Like that's not something a regular person might think to do or ask about.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So that's what I tell people to do, and just get yourself a notebook or whatever works for you on your phone. Back then, we still had the flip phones. We didn't even really text back then, or I don't think there was a texting option back then. But, just notebook, and I just had like specialists, I had labs, I had um, diagnostics, and I had a copy of each. Who did I talk to at certain office, that kind of thing. And that was very helpful because, again, sometimes they're like, well, we need you to go do a CT. I'm like, well, I did one last week. Is that good enough? Or, they would say, oh, we need a lab draw, but yours was 30 days out. We need a new one. So it helped being um, organized and clear and getting everybody on the same page.
Yeah, no doubt. That's really great. So what was their plan of attack? What kind of treatment did they want to have or for you to have?
So at that, the choices that I had was either do a lumpectomy and then do radiation, or I could do a mastectomy and possibly not do anything, because we didn't know, like, oh, was there chemo involved, just depending on the lymph nodes and stuff. Um, but after, so I decided on doing a mastectomy, because I had some other iffy spots um, on around the breast, and so they said, "Well, we can biopsy it each year if it changes," but I just didn't want to deal with that, so I decided to have a mastectomy with a DEP reconstruction,
And
and
so
so
was this a
um,
unilateral mastectomy? So just one, or was
just
it
on one
double?
side,
Got
yeah.
you. Uh-huh. I got
I
you.
wanted a double, but everybody, as in my primary, my husband, we asked several friends who are in the medical field. We asked a couple other breast surgeons, and they all felt that I should just go with a single. That double would be a lot, and then with a double, I would need implants. And at that time, I didn't want to do any implants. I just couldn't think of having anything foreign in my body at that time. And I had enough fat in my belly to do a graft for the DF reconstruction. So
Gotcha.
basically, it was the graft from my belly
Uh-huh.
that's here. So here's my, I call this my foob, my fake boob, because that's what it is,
Yeah, yeah, that's
my
awesome.
fat.
Gotcha. And so with that mastectomy, they didn't need to do chemo. That's right.
Well, so they sent it for an oncotype diagnosis, and depending on what the score was, uh, I was going to use it to leverage whether I needed chemo or not. So we talked to a couple of oncologists, one actually out in the West Coast and one in the East Coast, and then one where I was, and they felt that I could get away with not doing any chemo because my oncotype score was actually on the lower end, but they also felt that it would kind of help um, since I was only 36. And then it was invasive ductal carcinoma.
Right. So it's
And
kind
it
of
was, yeah,
like the chemo would be kind of almost like a preventative or something, or make sure that it
yes,
gets everything
yeah,
kind of deal. Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So I also use that to bargain with my oncologist because he was suggesting that I do adriamycin and Taxol, which I know was more, I guess, what they call the red double, the harsher of the chemos. And I bargained with him. I said, "Hey, can I do Taxotere and Cytoxin and 4 rounds of it?" Because that's what some of the other oncologists had said. Hey, I would put in your situation, I could go with this regimen. But my oncologist again felt that since I was young and we don't know how this happened, that he would rather have me do 6 treatments. And so I said, okay, we will do 6 treatments of the Taxotere and Cytoxin. Um, However, I reacted very badly after each treatment. Like I broke out in shingles
Oh
after the first
gosh.
one. Then I broke out in hives that never went away.
Oh gosh.
And so by the fourth treatment, my oncologist actually decided we should stop.
Wow. Gosh, that sounds
So,
miserable. I haven't heard of people getting shingles from chemo treatment. I've heard of people having hives and stuff like that, but man, that sounds terrible.
your immune system is down.
Right, right.
So
Lord.
it just, yeah,
Yeah, that's
it was
rough.
painful.
Yeah.
So, but yeah,
Did they know
um,
which of the chemo was doing it? Was it the Taxotere or the Cytoxin, or did they know?
it's probably the Taxotere.
Yeah. Okay.
So, yeah.
So then what happened after they decided to stop? Did they just say, "Okay, we're done," or did they have to switch to something else?
Um, no, so we were done, and then it was just recovery. I had reconstruction, um, and I was just still recovering from all the hives and the pain. Um, I had a Neulasta shot every time after a treatment, and that's to help, with your white blood cell count. And the pain was so bad after each time that I couldn't
Yes.
um even get out of bed.
Yes.
Actually, like the first time,
Uh huh.
I peed in bed
Oh
because
no.
I couldn't get out of bed.
Oh my gosh.
So I, I wore diapers,
Yeah.
and I tell people, I'm like, "Hey, it's okay to wear a
Yeah,
diaper,"
yeah. I
because
mean,
I did. And also, like, with the pain, I know, I did research, and in South America for Neulasta pain, they were giving their patients Claritin because it was like a antihistamine reaction that would help with the pain, but it wasn't being used here in the States. And so my oncologist felt that I should exhaust other means of pain meds before going to Claritin. But also, so I was also doing more research, and they're like, "Oh yeah, you could do marijuana." But at that time, it's so funny. My friends, they're like, "Well, we can find out how you can get some," and a friend even got me a bong.
you're like,
I
hey,
be
sorry about your cancer. Here's a bong, like a parting gift.
um,
Oh my
but part
god.
of it was the more I thought about it and I prayed about it, I just did not want my kid to ever ask me, and "Mom, did you ever do drugs?" And I would have to say yes, because back then it was not legal, right?
Right, right, right. Yeah.
So I just went with higher opioids for pain management
You know,
and
I,
stuff.
I make that joke, but I mean, your friends trying to take care of you. I mean, and whatever they can do. I mean, honestly, you got some good friends. They're like
They
whatever
they
to help
did.
you. They were willing to do whatever. So that's actually pretty
Ex-
cool.
it's funny because, like, the friend who went that route, she just put out a text to one of her hubby's friends, and the hubby's friends had friends, and they said they were inundated. Everybody wanted to help this cancer babe, is what they called it. So it was pretty funny.
Oh, that's awesome. So, you were able to complete that in the last shot. I'm glad you brought that up because I feel like I'm one of the only other people that talks about how bad that hurt. Like the not the shot itself, but it would cause my bones to ache so bad that I couldn't
Yes.
even move. Like I felt like I had been beaten with a baseball bat. I mean, it was just
Yeah.
bad. So
Yeah.
it's like I had told you earlier. One of the things that I love about talking to other survivors and warriors is being able to feel like you're not alone in a situation, and the fact that it kind of validates. Okay, I had that problem, and Flora did too, and it's like it is a thing, and
In some ways, it felt worse than the whole chemo sometimes.
oh
Um,
yeah, same.
like chemo afterwards, I think people ask me, like, "What do you feel?" And I would say, like, "I feel fuzzy and warm, but not in a good sense." Sometimes, like, when you have a warm, fuzzy feeling, it's a good feeling, but it was like warm, fuzzy in a bad way because I was warm with all the steroids. Because with the Taxotere and Cytoxin, you get a lot of steroids. You start like 2 or 3 days beforehand, and then you keep on taking it afterwards. So steroids also keeps you up. It made me have bad dreams, nightmares. So I would be like pacing the house.
Oh no, yeah,
So in some ways, it was great that when we stopped it, I stopped having all that, and I
yeah,
started sleeping better.
that is good. So that pretty much wraps up round one of breast cancer, right? Did
Hmm.
we miss
Yes.
anything? We got your unilateral mastectomy, your chemo, then the last shots, and then you're kind of given like a clean bill of health, and you probably go and you're going every like 6 months or something like that. You do follow ups for a little while.
Yeah, and I was
Mhm.
getting the shots that were putting me in clinical or menopause because we knew we were estrogen ER positive, so we want to stop the, my periods at that point. Um, so I believe I was getting those shots every 3 months. I can't even remember now.
And
Um,
what do you remember?
I
What
think it was the
those?
depot shots.
Okay, okay,
I
gotcha.
believe they were depot shots.
Uh,
Um, so I kept on taking those, and I was on tamoxifen.
Gotcha. And so you were doing follow ups with your doctor
Mhm.
on the tamoxifen. And what happened next in your journey with breast cancer? Is it you've had another go
Yes.
with it?
Okay. So then in 2012, 3 years later, I'm 39. In July, I had a breast MRI, and that looked fine. In August, my husband and I, we went to a shooting range for a date night, and I hadn't gone shooting in a while, and I was a little sore. So I was massaging myself up here on my left side where I had my mastectomy, but right beneath my collarbone, and I felt a lump in my pectoral muscle. And
And how long ago was this again?
so this was August of 2012, so
Gotcha.
3 years later.
Okay.
And I called my radiologist, um, and so she looked at my film again and she said, I did not see anything. However, at the edge of where we did the film, I see some thickening. And so we scheduled for a biopsy. And I had the biopsy. And what she told my husband was that it did not look good.
No,
So,
that's not what you want to hear. Ugh.
yeah, because I said, "Just tell me the truth,
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
sugarcoat it. What did you think?" And then
yeah.
she said, "It does not look good." Because I just said, uh, "I partly wanna know because I need to start making childcare arrangements because I have a 6-year-old and 9-year-old now." So they were in school. We're about to start school. We had meet the teacher that weekend. So, it was more of, I need to get my ducks in a row so I can take care of myself.
Oh wow. Yeah. Wow, that's a lot to deal with. And you've got the kids and then figuring this out.
Mhm.
So when they did the biopsy, how long was it before you got the results of that?
Um, a couple days
I,
later, I
I
think I
want
had
your
a
scheduling people because I'm just telling you, you got everything done way faster.
uh, well, my radiologist is a breast cancer survivor herself too, and so she kinda knows
Yeah,
how.
yeah.
But, I mean,
Yeah.
I remember waiting a weekend or so,
Yeah, that's
like
always
4
rough.
days,
Yeah.
3, 4 days,
Mm,
exactly.
yeah.
If Like, it was like a Thursday, and then I found out probably, like, on a Tuesday morning,
Right.
and she called me.
Wow.
So
And so
so
this was
yeah,
different though, right?
right. So this time it was an they're not calling well, they called it a recurrence, so they didn't really stage it since it was a recurrence, and it was odd that it was the side that I had the mastectomy. So, it infiltrated right to my chest wall. Uh, so this time the pathology was ER positive, PR negative, and still HER2 negative. So again, on my team, my oncologist, breast surgeon, they said, why don't we get a second opinion? And so who do I get a second opinion with? Dr. Joyce O'Shaughnessy.
Yay! We just heard of her too. And that wasn't even a plant because I didn't know that till right now. That's so awesome. She's the greatest. Yeah.
So she was very highly recommended by people, even people that we called down um, at MD Anderson and a couple other institutions. And so she was available. She was in the midst of a couple of clinical trials. And so we were able to get an appointment with her. And so it was great because one of the things that we found out, like if we were to get an appointment at MD Anderson, they want all your slides, all your pathology, and then they would do their own. So that would put me back maybe like a month or two um, in my treatment. And I didn't like that. So when Dr. O'Shaughnessy had an opening, we jumped at it. Um, and then she was very thorough. She had looked at all through all my notes, all my films, and then she made her suggestions. And you know, one of the things that we asked her was, since I already had chemo before, would you go with a different class of drugs? And so she said it was a good plan to do that. And another thing that we asked her was, is my pathology or my cancer a rare one? Do I need to come to your facility, your institution to do this treatment, or can I do it back home in my community? And so she said, not that my cancer wasn't important, um, but that it wasn't considered maybe like a rare or unusual one, and that she thinks that I would do better back in my community where I wouldn't be traveling as far and just be more comfortable um, to have my treatment done.
That's very
And
cool.
so I
So
felt,
yeah,
yeah, that made a difference.
yeah, yeah, I bet it did, and I'm glad that she, was honest about her thoughts. She wasn't like trying to get you to come down there for some reason, and she really wanted what was
Mhm.
best for you as the patient. So, what was the changes that they made to the chemo that you started on after this bout?
So I went with FEC, which is kind of similar to the Adriamycin Paxil, the red double one. And actually, FEC is what is used at MD Anderson a lot. So, and again, it was a different class than my Taxotere and Cytoxin.
And
So this time around,
uh
I did chemo first, then I had my surgery. Versus
gotcha.
last time I had surgery then chemo.
Right. And how did you fare with this new chemo?
Um, Better. And so, I had to do my heart echo check before doing this. And actually, after I did finish all my chemo, and when I went back to uh, the cardiologist, I did have some changes. But it's one of those things where um, the way I see it is we can deal with some of the side effects as long as my cancer did not spread.
Yep.
And that was kind of what was, that's what I had to keep in mind, the perspective of it all.
Right. And just for those watching, that's a common thing that they do because a lot of times the treatments can have an effect on your heart. So they do like a baseline before you start the treatment, and then they do another one after and compare and see if there's any changes. So that's pretty common. Mine was like a heart ultrasound. From
Hmm.
what I remember, mine was 2010. So it was around the
Yeah.
same time as you. So I guess that's kind of common. But yeah, so whatever happened, it's not a serious effect. And is it a long term effect or anything like that?
So I'm currently on high blood pressure medicine because of it, just to help out my heart. So again, I just have to have the perspective, hey, I don't have cancer. It's not spread anywhere. I'm just dealing with this that can be maintained.
Yeah, totally. And I'm sure
Yeah.
people watching are wondering, were you able to make the teacher conference?
Yes, it did. Basically, my kids, and I'll get to like things I learned is like my kids, after I had cancer in the middle of all the chemotherapy, they never missed an appointment. They never missed any meetings because I had people who would come and pick them up to make sure they went to where they needed to be. I mean, we missed more meetings when I was in charge.
They really took
So,
good care of you. Yeah,
right,
it sounds
right.
like you had just a fabulous support group.
I did.
Yeah.
And so after the surgery, um my profile changed. I became HER2 positive. And so in some ways my medical team was kind of excited because they felt like that was the reason I had the recurrence, even though like it, it was HER2 negative the first time around. So then I started on Herceptin. So it took another year before I finished my treatment.
I mean, it feels like you've over the years have had everything thrown at this. I mean, like you started with the ER positive, PR positive, HER2 negative, and you had this set of chemo drugs, and then the next time around you had
Mhm.
another, and then you switched, and now you're taking Herceptin, and like it feels like you've touched on almost everything, but you did avoid the red devil, right?
It was the FEC was red,
Okay,
so I
it
guess
is
it
a
was
devil of
red.
its own.
Right, Red Devil's cousin.
That's funny.
They're same family. So
Wow. Well, I hadn't heard of that. You said it's called F
FEC,
FEC. Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. I'll have to
So,
look.
but I know it's just it's pretty standard at MD Anderson
Got you.
what they do.
Yeah.
But I also just want to say like I learned a lot, you know, and I would not change this path that I was given or like the situation, this club membership that I was given. Um, the first thing I would, share would be like if you ever have cancer is just get rid of negativity, bless and release. People who are not good for you, situation that you're not that's not good for you, bless and release it. They don't need to be in your life. Um,
That's solid advice, man. It is. Having positivity around you is so important, and having a positive mindset when you're going through any kind of an illness is so important. It really makes a difference.
yeah, and you can handle everything graciously while basically saying no. It's like, oh, people saying like chemo's bad for you. Well, thank you for your suggestion. I'll take it into consideration. You know, or just like, why are you crying because you're losing hair? It's just hair. Like, thank you, but it's my hair. Thank you though. And then you
Right.
just end it there. Um, so I would say like get rid of negativity.
Yeah.
To have a point person. There were like days, weeks where I couldn't talk to somebody, but I had a point person who would just send an email or text out, and just answer the questions for people. Um, she was the person that coordinated the meals between my groups of friends. Like we had a church group, we had friends group, we had school groups. They coordinated rides for my kids, and just be direct with what you need help with. People are like, call me if you need something. Well, I would say who can come and wash vegetables for me because I was trying to eat better. I was doing juicing, I was doing um, these smoothies on the weeks that I felt better. Like the first week was just free for all, whatever I could eat, with chemo. Then second and third week, I'd get back on my good schedule. So it's like, come and wash my veggies. Who can do that? Who can come and help me fold laundry? Who can drive my kids on this day or watch my kids while I nap? That kind of thing. Like be really direct. And same thing like when I offer my services to help friends, I would say like, I can do this. You know, I made a meatloaf. Do you want a meatloaf? Or like, I can take your kids, you know,
Well,
to karate.
yeah.
Do
And
you want me to help with that? Yeah, just be really direct.
right, and that's totally solid advice because people really do want to help. And if you can kind of keep straight what you need help with and just go ahead and ask for it, almost always somebody's going to help you with that, whatever it is.
Right. And the thing is, so many times you feel like, oh, I don't want to impose on somebody, but allow people to bless you because it's also blessing them to be able to help out.
Oh, I love
So,
that. Yeah.
it just again, people came out of the woodwork, and sometimes I think, how come this person did not call me? But you know what? It's like one of those things, bless and release. It doesn't matter. They may be scared to talk about it. They may not know what to say. Or you don't know what, but it doesn't matter because I'm so blessed with people who are offering to help me that I don't need to be dwelling on a certain person
Yeah, and,
who,
and you're so
yeah.
right. I recall friends, after I finished treatment, that got in touch with me and apologized for not
Mhm.
being around when I went through it, and they told me that it was just too much for them to handle. Like they just couldn't. And I didn't hold a grudge against them. It doesn't help me to
Yeah.
do that. And everybody has their own things, and some people can be that person, and some people can't, and that doesn't make them a good or bad person or whatever. It's just everybody's different. you know?
Right. Everybody's different, and just really focus on what is good for you, what you can control, um,
Right.
and what's again, it's so cliche, but when you have this type of illness, your life changes and you get it, what's important and what's not. It's just
Yep.
like time with
Perspective.
my husband and my kids, those were very important.
Yep.
You know, I had little ones and I didn't want them to see me cry a lot. I mean, I did cry, but I would make myself do that usually in the shower. I cry, 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 cry. Then you're just all clean, all showered off, and then you can face the world again and put them to bed, that kind of thing.
Yep.
Um,
Totally.
and then like spending time with my husband, for example, like when people were bringing food, it might be like food I may not necessarily want to eat because I just couldn't stomach it. But I had food for my husband and kids, and that helped out a lot. So we could spend time together um, because our relationship was still very important. We needed to bond and to know what it was like to still be as um, a couple. One of the things that we laugh about, we had this thing called sex, drugs, and rock and roll because we talk about sex because there was really nothing going on, but we talk about it. Drugs because we would talk about, oh, let's research on what did you find about this drug
Uh-huh.
that we're gonna go on next, or what are the side effects, blah blah blah. And then rock and roll. That's when we decided that, hey, when we were younger, our parents would let us go to these concerts. Now we're gonna go to these concerts, and so that's when we started
That's
planning
awesome.
to go to different concerts, and
Uh-huh.
we would like fly out to Washington,
Oh, cool.
DC for a concert. We flew out to Chicago, for other concerts.
Well, I
It
mean,
our way to connect.
yeah, yeah, and it's the point of like how much going through a diagnosis like this changes your perspective. It really, really, truly does. I want to make sure, Flora, I've got a few people that have said things during the broadcast. I just want to
Hmm.
pass on to you. So, Annette is here, and Annette. Oh, she's gonna kill me. I just did it. Annette. Her name is very specific, and I mess it up every time. But she is a breast cancer survivor. She wanted to tell you hello and say that her first diagnosis was in 2009 as well. Bill is in the house. He says hello. Jennifer Tatum. Hi, Flora. Love you, my friend. There you go. Tori wanted to point out, she said it was a good choice not to go with the implants. She has experience in
Hmm.
that. So, very,
Oh
very
yes.
good point. And then we got other comments here looking. Yes. Jennifer says it's such an impossible dilemma to endure possible heart issues or other side effects in order to survive breast cancer. It is a dilemma for sure. Absolutely.
Yep.
Colin says it's nice to have doctors like Dr. O who are out there on the front lines helping. Yes, big time. And Colin says, plus going through it makes you a trooper. So he's calling you a trooper for sure. That's very cool. Very, very
You.
cool. There's lots of comments, so you'll have to get on to Facebook after we hang up here and check them out. So there's even more on there, but I'm gonna have to let you go because I got the next person coming up. But girl, thank
Yeah.
you so much for joining the show
Yeah.
this evening. It was a pleasure getting to know you and chatting with you, and just hearing your unique story. So thank you so much for sharing with us today.
Great. Thank you.
You bet. Have a good evening. Okay.
Okay.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye. All right, everybody. That was Flora, amazing breast cancer survivor. Really grateful for her story this evening.